Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakthrough Moment podcast. Zac Deane here with Rowan Bishop. Thank you for joining us, Rowan.
Well, welcome.
For those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, the Breakthrough Moment podcast is all around sharing entrepreneurs' breakthrough moment in their career that allowed them to go into the next level of success. And as they share their breakthroughs, us at home can have breakthroughs as well. And so for those of you who don't know who Rowan is, he is a financial coach and mentor. He's helped hundreds of people build wealth through long-term passive investing so they can have security and choices in life. He loves his cricket. He's from Adelaide, and I'm super excited to dive into some juicy breakthrough moments from you, Rowan. So without further ado, to you, what have been some of your breakthrough moments throughout your career?
Oh, thank you, Zac. Thank you for the introduction. Look, I suppose breakthrough moments. It's with regard to, I suppose, my business. It's a case of moving from being an amateur hobbyist, because a little bit about my background. I've been in IT and technology for many years. I've been in Australia for 35 actually, and I suppose I always had a passion for I suppose extending myself, doing more, learning more, and that goes back to my network marketing days in the 90s and being crossed with personal development. So I suppose a few years ago, I think it was about 2018, I was happy with my IT career, but I suppose there's a yearning to do more, especially when you're involved with personal development. You extend yourself, you think about these things a bit forward. So I suppose the breakthrough moment then came when I thought, well, I've had all this experience. I did actually try and dabble in investing, and not very successfully over many years, tried to actually accelerate the process to the dream. And I suppose I basically made a decision. I wanted to have an impact. And that's how my business, or in those days, hobby started. I actually wanted to write a book, because I've got lots of books. I'm a good reader, and I've read a lot of good financial books. And that was a bit of a catalyst to improving my investing situation. But then I decided to invest in myself by buying a course that developed a program that helps me deliver information to people. So I started 2018 as a hobbyist. So that's catalyst number one. I suppose had a desire to create an impact. The second big catalyst, because I actually went from program just to try and learn things on my own about 18 months ago, just over now, I sort of got a bit fed up of trying things and trying to build a coaching business and mentoring business and not doing very well. And one thing I hadn't done, even though I bought programs and got a lot of good information and courses, was I actually didn't hire a coach. So the big breakthrough moment for me was I luckily got connected with a lady who's also here in Adelaide, who's since moved to Brisbane, called Sophia Rose Bernardi, who's actually a coach that actually had a simple, sustainable way of actually building a online coaching business. And that, to me, I suppose, was a breakthrough. And I actually struggled with, I'd never had a problem with buying products, I suppose, and such, but the few times I've actually invested in a coach was actually the time where either I personally, or from my business perspective now, in the 18 months ago, that actually had some major changes. So the big breakthrough for me was actually 18 months ago, is actually committing to a coach and for the accountability support, and actually stretching myself. And actually, I suppose, someone who's, got proven record, a simple, sustainable system that helped me sort of transition from an amateur to a professional.
I couldn't agree more. Coaches are one of the best ways to kind of save time and achieve results, right? If they can show you the method, then that's going to be one of the formulas to get you out of the breakdown, so to speak, and into a breakthrough. Yeah. So that's exciting. That's really cool. What was it that the coach shared with you specifically that allowed you to have that jump?
Look, I think it's more about having someone, I suppose it sounds trite, but believing in you actually, because after you, from 2018 till 2022, 3, early 23, and I suppose I tried and I started to lose confidence that, I could actually build a business online, and do it. And I suppose it was at that time where I was at, I suppose, a bit of a low point in confidence. So it's actually instilling that confidence, and actually a simple way of doing things. Sounds easy, not necessarily, sorry, simple, but not necessarily easy. But I suppose it's really having that accountability and being pushed that really helped me. And Sophia has a really good, I suppose, system as well. The mechanics are also there of how to build an online business. But overlaying or underlaying, actually, or supporting that, the foundation is actually to the believing in me and holding me accountable to the things I said I was going to do. And when I was on my own, I just drifted off and didn't bother sometimes.
I can relate. No, 100%. It's those coaches or mentors are there to breathe belief into us, be our cheerleader, and the accountability they say productivity is fueled by accountability. So it's like, if you want to have that edge and you want to go to the top of the mountain faster, have a coach like an athlete, right? They all have
absolutely, yeah. And look, as you mentioned, I play cricket. Cricket's been a big part of my life. I played a lot of cricket, and it's funny actually looking back. I was always someone that listened to the coach at training. Was always looking for different ways and asking, bouncing. But I suppose when you get into the workforce, and I come from a technical background, so I'm one of those logical people. And I suppose over the career that I've had in that environment, you tend to sort of, and in the corporate world, it's a bit old school, really. You don't actually ask for help a lot. You try and nut things out on yourself, and the times that you do ask for help, you notice. So I suppose there was that baggage that I was clever enough. I can do this myself. I can figure it out. But then there comes a realization that through your life, whether it be sport or other areas, that coaching really, really does help. And that really has been a big breakthrough moment for me, pivotal moment in the last 18 months.
That's another great point. For sure. I think especially as having that jump from what you were doing before and then getting into business and then thinking that you had to do it all by yourself. Like, I could totally relate to that. And I went, all right, I'm going to get into business. And I started in network marketing when I was 18 personally as well. And so that was my first taste of entrepreneurship and online business at the time. And I had no idea whatsoever. But then I heard the people that were successful, they just asked better questions to the right people and got the answers, and then were more successful with the life that I wanted. And I was like, so it was my ego that was getting in the way, or kind of my limiting belief of whatever it meant to be a man and speak up and ask for help. But I thought it was weak. But no, it's a sign of power and, sign of success. So that's
strength. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I'm really curious, Rowan. So there's other entrepreneurs out there that are in a breakdown right now, and they're wanting a breakthrough. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think it's there's a couple of things. Really, one is take it right back. If you're having a bit of a down moment, and we've all had those, it's really important to go back to why you started what you want, or your business, basically. Because that's what it all comes down to. You started the business for a reason. And a lot of people start a business because and maybe something personal for me. It was, I suppose, not understanding anything about investing and losing lots of money because I, followed the wrong people, etc. And I suppose there was a lot of pain associated with that. So, and it's about going back to where your passion, where are you passionate about in the gap that you're filling with your business? Because you don't want to buy another job if you're not enjoying it, if you're not passionate about filling that gap in the market that your business, then go do something else. So it is actually taking one step back. And look, first of the month, this is 1st of October. First of the month, I always sort of take a step back and think about those things, could then reset. So that's the first thing. I suppose go back and think about why you started your business in the first place and what impact you wanted. And that's to get clear on the underlying reasons why. So that's probably the most important thing. And the second thing is, I suppose, having done that, is actually don't fall in love. And like I've been in the tech entrepreneur industry for many years. People fall in love with their product, their system, their widget. Fall in love with your customers' needs, the thing that you're passionate about filling. That's the second thing. And because without that, you don't have a business. You might have a very expensive widget and nothing known to sell, no one who wants to buy it. And third thing is, I suppose, surround yourself with people that are successful entrepreneurs, successful people in life. And out of that, you can find a coach or mentor or whatever. But probably those three things, if you put yourself in an environment where with successful people, listen, read, associate, masterminds, find a mentor / coach, then they can actually help you through that process of you feeling a bit down or it's hard, and you really need to applaud yourself. And I suppose actually that's the fourth thing, is really applaud yourself for actually stepping out and doing what the 1% of people who make a difference in this world actually do. You are making a difference as an entrepreneur. And you really need to applaud yourself, be grateful, pat yourself on the back, give yourself some grace, as Tony Robbins actually says, give yourself some grace. So I've actually, I don't know if you asked for one, but I've actually given 4 key things there, Zac.
I wouldn't expect anything less, Rowan. That's perfect. Thank you. There's some great points there. I'm super curious on this next question. So if you could go back in time and start investing, well, maybe before you started investing or before you started your career, and change one thing, what would that one thing be?
Well, that's an interesting question, actually, because I suppose it's like those sliding door moments, isn't it? If you change one thing, it could change the whole trajectory of your life. However, I suppose I've got young adult kids, 21 and 20, actually 22, just turned 22 last week. So I suppose for about 8 years, when they started part-time work in hospitality, 8 years ago, one thing I did actually encourage them, and I was a bit of a Nazi 8 years ago with them, but they thank me for it today, because I told them to make sure that part of everything they earn is theirs to keep. And that's a little bit about, there's a book called Richest Man of Babylon there, which is a great book. And I think I've instilled in them, and I wish I did all those years ago, start the habit of saving from an early age. That would be one thing. And actually understanding that that's not saving to buy a new car in a year's time or something that's depreciates, but something that you can actually hold on to for years and make grow. And I think that is probably the one key thing that, I suppose when I was my kids' age, when they were 15, I wish I'd started, because after 6, 7 and 9 years or whatever, they've actually both got a really nice nest egg, and they're investing it through exchange traded funds or ETFs, and it's just growing, and it's getting to the stage that they can actually see the start of the compounding effect to start after 9 years. So that's probably one thing that I try and tell people. It doesn't matter where they are in life, but if I could go back, I would actually do that. Save a fair proportion of money from an early age, and that sets you up to have financial security choices down the track if you invest it wisely. So that's probably one thing I would do.
Awesome. Me too. I wish I couldn't have touched some of my investments at times.
Yeah.
Lock and key, but hindsight. The industry is changing so much. We've got inflation, we've got technology, we've got, unemployment, all these different challenges globally, with potential wars. what would be a prediction for the future of investing for Australia or for the world?
Well, that's interesting because I think Warren Buffett is one of the most successful investors in the world, and he doesn't make predictions. I think what he it's a great phrase. He said they're more people that predict the future are more like the backyard fortune tellers, because you can ask 10 different people, 10 to give predictions, and I suppose they give 10 different answers. Look, and there is a case, I suppose, as Warren Buffett, if you're actually investing for the long term, the short term fluctuations that are happening at the moment, and I will come back and talk about those anyway. That really, if you make a decision to invest for the long term, which is like a 10-year period, these immediate fluctuations you're seeing today don't really make a difference, because if you zoom out and look at the market, it always goes up. And one of the reasons why there is so much noise is the fact that they want these news companies do want to actually get eyeballs on screens, small screens, big screens, so they can actually get advertising. So they sensationalize things. Now, I'm not downplaying some of the important things that are happening at the moment, because yes, there are some in the Middle East. There has been a conflict in Ukraine. But I suppose, and I will touch on a couple of things there, but if you have a plan, and that's, as I was talking about savings and investing, having a plan, and then for a long term to build security and financial choices, then what happens in the next couple of years isn't going to be much of an issue in 10 years' time. Your money will grow. Having said that, I think in Australia in particular, let's talk about inflation and interest rates, we are, I think people can say with certainty, with a minimum of certainty, that now 2025, next year, interest rates will go down, because inflation is actually starting to get under control. So their cost of living pressures that actually are affecting a lot of people will ease. Now, whether that be February or whether that be June, it's hard to tell. But actually, someone asked me recently, should I fix my mortgage rate? And I said, look, it's up to you to make a decision, but this is what's happening. The inflation is coming down. Interest rates will likely go down. And do you want to be locked in 6 months' time to a mortgage interest rate that's higher than the variable rate? So I did lead them, I suppose, a little bit, but they made the decision on that. So from that perspective, it is, inflation's coming down, and mortgage payers will actually be a bit easier on the pocket. And with regards to the conflicts around the world, look, we don't know what the impact is as yet. So always have some savings in the bank, called an emergency fund for those little emergencies. Never borrow as much for your house, for example, to max that out. If you spend much less than you earn, I think if you stick to the basic principles of financial management and basic investing in property, shares, ETFs, and bonds, then I think over that period of time, you will actually ride any short-term fluctuations out while your wealth is growing.
Very interesting. Do you think there's going to be some kind of dollar value correction or crash coming? We're kind of in a cycle at the moment. Or do you think inflation's, as you mentioned, it's going to maybe turn around, but surely there's going to be some kind of shift or crash? No?
There is a cycle, and we have had every year there's a pullback of 10%, and we had one this year already. Look, it's hard to tell. We had the conflict in Lebanon. Usually, oil dips because of the conflict in the Middle East. Gold has gone up, and the share market crashes on these kind of things. But yesterday, in the last few days, we've seen on the Australian and the American stock exchange, then going to new record highs. So there's a bit of a disconnect between the traditional, if there's conflict, share markets crash, oil crashes, gold goes up, and actually what has actually happened. So it's hard to make predictions, Zach. It really is hard. All I know is when you zoom out, there is that zigzag, but at the end of the day, the market does go up.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think the market's manipulated at all if things like that happen? If there are these global issues and in the past it's gone a certain other way, there might be manipulation at play. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's always been an element of that because these large institutional investors move money, and we saw, I suppose, a lot of money move out of Japan a couple of months ago, which because of the low interest rate in Japan, the environment there for many years, a lot of people borrowed money from Japan and invested in the stock shares, bonds, etc., elsewhere to get a better return. And when Japan increased interest rates, then that what they call the carry trade actually sort of started to disappear. So a lot of money flowed out of Japan into different. So these large institutional investors behind the scenes, there's always machinations and manipulations that happen. China always manipulate their currency, and they put a heap of, and that's another big elephant in the room. I suppose China is the whole world has suffered from inflation, except China, which inflation's actually they've got the opposite problem. So they pumped a lot of money into the economy in China just last week, and their share market's gone vertical and put pressure on their currency, but they manipulate the currency as well. So, look, as I think the key message is, you and I are retail investors. There's not much we can do except look at the long term and actually position ourselves by saving for a rainy day, invest and look at the long term. And if you want to play with exotics like crypto, etc., make sure it's a small amount that you can't lose because there could be another crypto crash. There are some changes that institutional investors are actually putting a lot of money in Bitcoin, for example. So there is a change, but it's still early days. And as I said before, property, bonds, shares, ETFs, those are the 90% of the world's wealth is held in those four asset classes or three asset classes. So it's a case of if you stick to that as a retail investor, you can't go wrong over a longer period of time.
Such a great point. I've personally the last about a year, just over a year, started learning to teach myself forex trading, and because I think as what you're communicating, it's something that you live and breathe, and it's such an important part of life. As you mentioned when we first had that chat, it's not the only thing, but it ranks up there with oxygen.
I did use that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an old Zig Ziglar saying too. And yeah, so I think it's, what do they say? Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll feed himself forever. So I think that's what I'm really picking up from what you're saying is do your research, dive into mastering it yourself or reach out to a coach if you want it like yourself to help you, speed up that education process.
Well, financial education is key. Yes, that's definitely the key.
And so what would be the most important message you'd like to impart today, Ron?
Well, entrepreneurs watching this, I suppose I sort of or probably already made some key points. Like, I suppose your business is really an inside job. And I've talked right at the beginning about personal development, and I think it's key for entrepreneurs to look at their personal development, not just the technical product development or how you structure your business, but you as an entrepreneur need to, it's actually here and here that your business will succeed. And I think if you work on yourself and develop yourself personally, whether that be through Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rowan, or Brendan Burchard, there's a whole heap of I suppose, coaches, mentors, and programs out there to help you understand yourself better. That's the first thing. Be persistent. Give yourself grace about failing, and lastly, I suppose, fall in love with your customer, and not necessarily your product or business. So those are probably the key things, I think. Yeah, that's probably the most important three things, in my opinion, Zach.
Awesome. And on the back end of that question, if you could challenge the audience to, push them in a certain direction or get them to make a change, what would be that one challenge you'd like to impart?
Look, I think probably seek out a coach, mentor, or mastermind group. I think that's to help support you as an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is a very lonely job, and if you can surround yourself, my challenge would be to find a group. If you haven't got already got a group or a person, is to go find one, and keep searching till you found the right one. I went different programs and people, etc., until I found the right coach for me.
Oh, fantastic. So everyone at home, definitely reach out to Rowan. How can people get in touch with you, mate?
Oh, it's simple, actually. I don't have basically on Facebook, it's Rowan Bishop. On Instagram, it's at Rowan, Rohan, Bishop. So just find me on Facebook or Instagram and connect, and yeah, we can love to have you in my world.
There you go, guys. Reach out to Rowan if you're wanting to upgrade your financial literacy, one of the most important things in life. I'll put the links around here on the video to connect with him. But yeah, any final comments before we wrap it up, Rowan?
No, I think I've said this as much, and I hope this has helped. I suppose move the needle for some people, and just keep it. And I suppose the one thing is persistence, and just keep persisting to the next stage to stay in the game. Actually, that's actually I'll read something out which I've got on my because it's sometimes this is on the back on my bookcase. It's called The Man in the Arena, and it's by Theodore Roosevelt, which I read regularly if I'm especially when I'm not feeling the best about things, because it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how strong men stumble or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly and errs, comes up short again and again and again. Who best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So I love that quote because I think all entrepreneurs need to actually read that on a regular basis by Theodore Roosevelt, The Man in the Arena.
That's a great way to end the podcast. The Man in the Arena. Thank you, Rowan. This has been an inspiration. Appreciate the challenge, and everyone at home, reach out to him, get in touch. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rowan.
Bye-bye.